What's the creepiest thing that happened to you? I had a woman I didn't know walk right up to me at a playground, stand creepily next to me without looking me in the eye, and say, "Your two children are so beautiful, they are the kind of children that get taken." I grabbed my kids and basically ran away. As a kid, I used to help an elderly lady across the street with yard work. I hadn't seen her in a while, so I went over to check. I found her lying dead on her kitchen floor, with her cat crying for food. Never having seen death before, it really creeped me out. A few years ago, I woke up to 2 messages from a friend and my girlfriend, both asking if I was all right. Apparently, they both had a dream that I had been hit by a truck. The two of them weren't close, and I had no reason to suspect that it was a prank. People who've won a lifetime supply contest, how's it going? When I was a kid, there was a phone-in competition to rename a popular children's cereal. What we didn't know at the time was by voting you'd be entered to win a lifetime supply of the cereal, and my brother won. So they called up, and our mother told them we didn't want it. My mother ruined our childhood by telling Kellogg's we didn't want their lifetime supply of cereal. I could be eating that right now. 16 years later, I could still be enjoying that cereal. A friend of mine won a lifetime supply of pizza from Pizza Hut. It turned out they just calculated using his age and the average pizza a person consumes per year, and sent him a check for $37,000. That's way better than getting the pizza. We won a year's supply of the Tropicana juice drink. It was awesome, but you could only buy 4 cartons a month with dated vouchers, so it never really felt as magical as I was hoping. 9-year-old me wanted an infinite juice faucet in the kitchen. Employers, what is the most inappropriate piece of clothing someone has worn to a job interview? A few years ago, I had someone show up fresh out of the swimming pool, wet hair, bathing suit still on, hadn't even properly dried off. I went through the interview and a test simulation of the job with her. She actually did very well at that. When I took her to see my boss that made the ultimate decision, he took one look and said no. Didn't ask about the simulation or anything, just no. And no, it wasn't a lifeguard position, it was a small textile company. I worked in the U.S. Senate a couple years back. We were interviewing about half a dozen candidates for a junior position. One of the interviewees was wearing a Harvard shirt, a Harvard jacket, and Harvard sweatpants. We were astounded. The first question my coworker asked was, "Did you go to Harvard?" Shockingly, he did, and he handled the rest of the interview well. He didn't get the job, but he did become a running joke in the office for a while. People who have dialed numbers written on bathroom stalls, "What's your story?" I saw a number scratched on a bar table that said something like, "Call Mike, he's been really mean." So I sent Mike a text telling him to be nicer, and in response he sent me back several angry, "Who the hell is this?" messages. It turns out he was really mean. When I was younger, someone wrote, "For a good time call," and my number on the playground slide. People would call a couple times a week, laugh, and then hang up. It started to get annoying, so I went to the playground to cover it up. Someone saw me doing it and called the cops saying I was vandalizing the playground. They got to me later and I had to explain to the cop that I was just removing my number so people would stop calling me. I found a business card in a phone booth printed cryptically with, "If you don't call, you'll never know," and a phone number. Since I had time left on the phone card, I called, and now I know. It was a fake religious self-help cult trying to recruit people to seminars at their ranch in like New Mexico somewhere with promises of finding a new spiritual family. No thanks. What is one rule at your school or work that backfired horribly? My school had a no-touching rule, which meant you'd get suspended for high-fiving a friend. Girls got in trouble for hugging their friends. Our teachers thought this was ridiculous and would have students high-five each other every day. So many kids got suspensions that the rule stopped being enforced and only counted if you touched a kid in a bullying situation or sexual harassment. My high school made students wear these neon t-shirts that said, "Dress code violator," if their outfit didn't adhere to the school's policy. They became so popular the school began selling them 1 week later. My high school took all the stall doors off the boys' bathrooms because of graffiti or something. So I started pooping in the bathroom near the office. After a couple of times of the superintendent coming in while I was doing that, all the doors were put back on. What school detention was worth it? A teacher I know had a goldfish on his desk. When the class came in for their first day, he gave them a few rules. However, he said that his most important rule was that no one touch his goldfish no matter what. Later in the year, he begins to teach about how laws, whilst upheld by the government, are not always fair or correct. During this lesson, he takes the goldfish out of its bowl and throws it on the ground to let it die. My friend, out of instinct, picked up the goldfish and put it back in the bowl. He was given a detention for breaking the rule, and the detention description said, "For doing the right thing." I had a teacher who would not let anyone go to the bathroom the entire year, so the last month of school, my friends and I got so annoyed with it that I decided to take action. I brought an extra change of clothes and drank 3 bottles of water at lunch. That afternoon, I asked the teacher if I could use the restroom, and of course, she gave the usual no, so I said, "Okay," and pissed all over myself and the desk. The look on her face was worth it. Now she lets people go to the bathroom as needed. Lawyers, has there ever been a time the opposition accidentally helped you? A witness on the stand was claiming that he had suffered injuries to his arm because of a city bus accident. The attorney asked him to demonstrate to the jury how far he can lift up his arm after the accident. The witness makes a feeble effort of lifting his arm. Then he asks the witness to demonstrate to the jury how far he could lift up his arm before the accident. He lifts his arm much higher. The jury laughs. The case was over. When I first started practicing, I handled a custody case where my client, a mother, had a problem with dad smoking around the kids. I asked him if he regularly smoked around the kids, to which he replied that he doesn't smoke tobacco, only weed. Obviously, this raised eyebrows, as it is illegal here. He then went into a long story about how he only follows the law of the streets. He actually said this, and doesn't recognize the authority of the court he was currently in. Needless to say, Mom got full custody, especially after the dad was arrested for going to the court services officer's house late at night and trying to kick her door in. What's the dumbest rule you had in school? We couldn't wear winter clothing in class, like coats, gloves, or hats. Even with the heat on, it got cold in the winter inside the school, so we just had to freeze. They said it was because winter clothing were gang symbols. This was a farm town in Wisconsin. When I was in high school, taking photography class, there was an assembly to announce that cameras were no longer allowed to be used on campus due to privacy issues. This was about 2 weeks after the school had installed security cameras everywhere. School mandated haircuts, and only for the boys. For the girls, as long as you didn't color your hair, you were fine. Checkup was every Monday, when we were lined up, according to height, for the flag ceremony. The prefect was very strict about it, but the teachers didn't care, so we just skipped mornings every few Mondays so we didn't have to get a haircut. What's the loneliest thing you've done? I was bullied horribly in school. When I was about 13, the kids in my class invited me over to go for milkshakes and fries to celebrate the first day of Christmas break. I excitedly told my parents, and they were so happy for me finally making friends. Needless to say, they all stood me up. I was too scared to go home and tell my parents that I had fallen for their lies, so I stayed out by myself for a couple of hours, ate fries, and drank a milkshake. Obviously, a horrible way to start Christmas break. Sometimes I pretend I'm texting. Most of the time I don't even turn on my phone, I just swipe around on the black screen. In high school, I legitimately ate lunch alone in bathroom stalls a few times when I had no one to eat with but didn't want anyone to know. I wasn't disliked or bullied, just really shy and basically totally unwilling to make the first move in friendships ever. Doctors, what is your most awkward experience when dealing with members of the opposite sex? We are taught to explain to patients exactly what we are doing, as we are doing it. Delicate wording is important during female pelvic exams. Instead of, "Okay, I am going to place the speculum inside now, so you'll just feel some warm pressure." My buddy ended up just saying, "Okay, I'm coming inside you now." The female patient responds with, "No thanks, I already have 3 children. My uncle is a urologist and I got a boner from checking out one of his nurses when I was around 12. I then had to explain why I couldn't drop my trousers for an examination. He asked if I wanted to go to the bathroom to do something about that. I had no idea what masturbation was and he explained vaguely to me the gist of it. I didn't feel like trying it, so we just sort of waited. I don't know if it was awkward for him, but whenever I think about it I cringe myself into a ball.